Welcome, YouTube valued viewers. Today is August 18th. It's Monday, episode 118. I said on Friday I was going to do a Saturday show. I wasn't up to it. And Sunday I was just not feeling into it. So I put it off. But I am going to speak on some of the things that I did speak about in depth was gerrymandering and what's going on in Texas and what could be going on in California and other places, because this is going to be a tit for tat. Or it could be. I do not advise the Democrats to do that. The congressional maps and everything else point towards definitely a definite win for the Republicans if you go and challenge them in that manner. I think that would be a very foolish thing to do. I'll move this over to here. It's my little NCUA logo. But I had said I didn't go into depth about what the redistricting, and that has always been an issue going back into the late 1700s, and using the map and population. The 65 Voting Rights Act set a lot of things in motion of protecting historically discriminated areas, states, where they'd have to get permission from the federal government to redistrict. And that got challenged in, 2021? And they kind of lost that redistricting and having to ask for permission from the federal government. That was like Article 5 and Section 2 and stuff in it, or Section 2, Article 5. But what actually is going to happen is part of that voting rights will survive, and that's one person, one vote. States are allowed to interpret district lines a little bit differently than the federal. And states have a lot of leeway on doing that. The Supreme Court also stated that they have no jurisdiction to go in there and force the states to do anything but, protect your right to vote. So that 2021 decision, where a lot of you hear Democrats saying they gutted the Voting Rights Act. That's not true. What they did do is say that you can't use, you can't not allow the states to go in and redistrict. They don't have to ask the federal government. The federal government has no privy on that. That's state rights. Where I said and always said the problem was they said they were allowed to protect areas that were historically of a language, of a race, of a community. That's not one person, one vote. Sorry, it's not. And no one was stopping those people from voting. There was nothing stopping the people from voting. One person, one vote. That's it. It was how they drew the line. And what they would do, and it happened. Gerrymandering is definitely, and now it's not legal in the sense of legal because you just can't change it to, well, you know what? Who knows? I don't know that it can't be used and politically weaponized because actually gerrymandering and redistricting is politicizing. Normally, what would happen every 10 years, they do a census, and that would then say how many people in this area, how many people in that area, and they got to move lines around. The only thing in there is that the lines, everyone has to be connected to one another. All the districts, you can't have blank areas that are underserved or not served. You have to have districts, and they all have to be connected. So it's how those lines get drawn. If, you put where an all black area, let's just say an all black area, and then go, no, we're going to go and split it down the middle and it's white people on the other side. Now, you diluted the, blacks having their own person. Well, no, it's one person, one vote. So it gets very, very murky. And that is happening. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Texas with that because there's a lot of things going on in Texas now. Of course, the Democrats have said they're going to return, and they're going to face a quorum and a vote. The Democrats threw in the towel. They knew that they were beat. They knew that this was not going to go in their favor as far as when push comes to shove, if you don't come and do your job, the reasonable is it's not someone being removed doing their job. It's removing someone who refuses to do their job. Huge difference. I think some cooler heads at the DNC started speaking to these people and said, hey, you do this, you're going to lose your job. And people are going to say, you don't do your job, you're out. You want to do the fight on the floor, you want to fight it that way, you do that. You do what you're elected to do. You're not elected to run and not do your job and not have any business of the legislation stop because you're having a temper tantrum. So it's been done by both sides. I get it. But this kind of went above and beyond because you had an entity like Beto O'Rourke going out, collecting money and go, no, don't worry, we'll pay your fines, we'll pay your hotels, we'll pay your expenses. Just don't come back. Is that a bribe? It sure sounds like that. It sure sounded like you're doing something really underhanded here. And that's a bad way to go. So that is what's happening in Texas. That was going to be my first topic of the day. Second topic is going to be Supreme Court could wind up scrapping high-profile precedences in the coming months. Well, come on, we knew that. This is nothing. That's one of the liberal media outlets screaming that it's the end of the world. Some of this will be challenged and is challengeable, but and the other thing that I'm going to be talking about, of course, a CNN story. CNN. Trump uses FBI and Justice Department to escalate his long-standing feud with Adam Schiff. Now, I'll tell you why that's a false story. That's a false story. So it's a silly position CNN took. So, well, we'll get back to Governor Abbott now. So, Governor Abbott won a big fight. He got the Democrats to have to come back, and they'll be fined, and they'll have to answer for what they've done, not only in the legislation aspect, but to their voters, to their supporters, and to the regular voters. And I think this, in the end, this will have hurt the Democrats. Them saying, well, no, they took a stand. Look at the stand they took. No, they didn't take any stand. Taking a stand would be standing all on one side of of their house and going, no. Stand up, no. And this is the reason. That's doing their job. That's doing something. Instead of stopping everything and doing what they did. Just real bad form, fellas. So, runaway Texas Dems officially throw in the towel and return home to face redistricting vote. And this could work in the Republicans' favor. It could work against them. Don't know till numbers start rolling around. Now, the other big thing is, and of course, it can't be done soon enough. But, Trump is calling, he wants another census. Instead of, the 10-year, what does it do, 2031 or something like that, or whenever the census, But, and he wants to make changes on that for the state, you could say everyone. Count everyone in the thing. But on the federal side, congressional seats, for congressional seats, I'm talking about the House of Representatives, not all of them. The Senate, you only get 2, and that's a statewide vote, and that's pretty easy to figure out. Doesn't go by lines. But in that, he only wants citizens to count in those districts. You can't count, 12 million illegals. So that's going to be interesting. And I think if that goes and he pushes that and that gets up to the court, I think that would hold. I think that would actually hold. So, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. I'd be shocked if that happened in time for the midterms. So, and, they say, well, non-citizens can't vote anyway. Well, in a lot of states they can. A lot of cities they can. For city, like in New York City, they can all vote. So there's a lot of places that allow non-citizens to vote in certain elections. And again, that segues into my other thing with how the Supreme Court could wind up scrapping some precedents. And Humphrey's executor, that has now been, kind of pushed to the side, and the president, in firing people from the Consumer Protection Agency and other agencies that were approved by the Senate and given terms. So, without cause. Now, the causes are very exact for firing them. President Biden fired someone from the um, railroad. I think he was an attorney general, or something along that line. He had a very high position, and he was in the railroad sector. And Biden fired him because he was accused of some shenanigans in the office, and that's for cause. Now, I would say not being able to do your job or doing it efficiently and effectively, but then those people would have the right to defend themselves. You just can't say, well, because I said so. It's not allowed. And those people would have a right to defend themselves. And in this case, they were not. They were not given that right to defend themselves. Trump just... And I said that was one of them where I was like, wow, yeah, we already have precedent on that, and we have laws on that, and we have rules and regulations on that. You could call them ineffective or, whatever. And then, go and show, the waste and the losses and the mismanagement in their areas where they were supposed to be looking over all this stuff. But this was one of them that I said I didn't agree with Trump on that. And it was the Humphreys executor versus U.S. But look it up. I've spoken about that in endlessly, because that is a Supreme Court ruling. And and as I said before, when the Supreme Court makes a ruling, that's a law. That's it. Done. No appeal, no nothing. Trump went back and asked, could he do that under his executive power? And the courts kind of agreed with Trump. And I look it over, and I mean, come on, you get lost in this stuff. I mean, that's why you have experts who lose cases like this, because it's so hard to figure out. So, it's an interesting events that are happening. Apologize, I'm going to start sneezing in a minute. I think the case that really will be the big one is the Louisiana congressional district map. But again, man, they shouldn't really be getting involved with some of this stuff. So, if the court side with a group of self-described non-black voters, it could gut a provision of the Voting Rights Act. Yes. Yes. In Louisiana, what they're saying is that by protecting a person because of their color is a form of discrimination against someone who's a different color. How does that equal one person, one vote, when you're saying that those votes go to someone else in a redistrict line? Or you can't restrict it, and you can't make and you can't change those lines, those district lines, which certainly is a state. It's a state right to do it. Legislators can do that. So it's a It's something that if the Supreme Court has its way. Well, I'm sorry, I'm fighting everything again. You know, I get this cold that comes back every 3 months. So the Voting Rights Act could be found to be partly discriminatory. That because people speak a certain language, they're protected, or people are a certain color, they get protected. Then that's not a fair representation, is it? Why does that person get to be treated differently with voting than a person that doesn't speak that language? See the problem? And that's been the whole problem. And we know why. We know why we had a voting right. Anyone that says, oh, we didn't need that, out of their minds, blacks were restricted from voting. Yeah, that was the case. But they're not restricted now. So their color doesn't matter. A person who speaks Spanish, that doesn't matter. If they're a citizen, one vote. One person, one vote. This is a matter of saying, I now have more people over here than I have over there. And these lines are supposed to be broken up into as close to equal portion of population as you can get. But when you can't redistribute, because, well, there's German people over there, and there's French people over there. And they have to be given their own little district and stuff for voting. Well, what ends up happening? You have more congressional seats. And, you know, you have to have these special ones where you have to apply and try to get more seats. It's just not you get more seats. But if they redraw the lines and say, hey, these are the new lines, and it isn't like you get 50, every state gets 50 districts. Or whatever it is. I'm just throwing out a number. 10 districts. You get 10 districts. And you got to shove your population into up to 10 of those. So you might have a huge concentration of people up in this part of the state, but this part, not so much. Like Maine. You know, so you have to be careful how you redistrict those lines, how you reset those lines. And there could be a lot of hanky-panky and a lot of people being no good nicks. Remember that? No good nicks? Ratfink. So the idea of the courts stepping in, mostly the federal, and they already said we can't go in there and tell you how to do your state lines. That's not in our wheelhouse. And where before they did say you couldn't change the lines, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. Now they're saying, hey, it's a state issue. Now, one person, one vote, absolutely. You can't discriminate on race, color, religion, blah, 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 and yet they do. Yet they do. And any discrimination when it comes to voting, is discrimination. So when people are saying we're being discriminated, you are. If I can't redistrict an area because there's X amount of black people here and we're going to keep that there, and we're going to reproportion that other side over there because we can't do it over here, so we're going to do it over there. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. So I think the Democrats will find that their challenge on this is going to hurt them. I understand. I understand exactly why they're upset. I understand exactly why they're upset. Sucks to lose. And mostly when you've lost the Congresses and you lost the White House. Yeah. You know, so, and you have people, you had people like Victoria Norse, a professor at Georgetown University, writing articles. And she worked for the Biden administration. So where do you think she's going to be leaning to? Biden. If you had someone coming from the Bush administration, Bush was all right. But, now when you have people leaning onto the Trump administration, you get those people going, no, we can do this because this is what the Constitution says we can and cannot do. So, I would say that in the case in Louisiana, the people making the petition are going to win because you just can't do what they did. It just won't pass the smell test, the sniff test. It just won't pass. They'll find it discriminatory in nature. Can't draw the lines because of color. Can't do that. So I think you're going to see a whole reversal. I think the federal can come in on that and saying, hey, since it was, we've spoke of this before, and it is a voting rights issue, yeah, we can come in and say something about that. All right. The last story that I'm going to touch upon, because this is going to only be maybe a 40-minute show tonight. The CNN story where Trump uses the Justice Department to escalate his long-standing feud with Adam Schiff. Well, who does he go to? The Marines? Schiff broke a federal law. You might not think, and I keep saying, you might not think that that is a worthable, or is it even worth going through all the trouble that they're going through to get him on the fact that he saved, 1.3% on a mortgage that was backed by a federally insured entity? Do you think it's all right to lie on those things? I mean, I would say if you outright lie on it, yeah, you could be in trouble and misrepresent. But I've said this before. I've had instances where I go, well, I didn't have my house appraised, but my neighbor just sold his house for, $400,000. So I'm going to assume my house is worth $400,000 because that's what the houses near me are selling for. So it's, yeah, it's a 4-bedroom house because, but I turned the 4th bedroom into a big dining room, but I could put a wall back up there and turn it back into a 4-bedroom. So there's a lot of leeway on that, but residency is not. And they specifically ask you on the application, is this going to be your primary residence? That's a very big question. That's like right at the top. And then, of course, they make you sign. And if you ever signed any of those FHA, VA, HUD forms, and they're all that because they conform to lending practices, that everyone has to be on the equal footing for that if they're going through federally insured, uh, or it's going to be sold on the secondary mortgage market, whatever, and you misrepresent that, well, you know, uh, maybe I only want to buy paper that is, owner occupied, and now in there is a Schiff's loan or James's loan, the Attorney General from New York, and they're not living there, and they never lived there. It wasn't like they changed their address and then they uh, changed it to something else. This is a lie. They lied. They misrepresented. And Schiff could find himself in, he'll have to answer it. And, right now, he has his lawyers speaking and he's saying that this is a political witch hunt. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I understand. But the question isn't whether or not it's a political witch hunt. You could ask that question later. Right now, did you sign that paper? That's the question we're asking you, not a political witch hunt. Did you knowingly sign that paper and say that that was going to be your primary residence? Yes or no? Yes or no? And like I said, if I was him, I'm not talking to you. And they go, well, we got your application. We're gonna assume that you did know it, and well, let his lawyer go, man. Hey, take it up the hill. And they go, well, we got his signature on it. We got everything here. We'll go forward. I mean, what we want to know, was it a mistake? And he's a lawyer. He knows that that's a trap question. And they go, well, it was a mistake. And they go, well, you have given two choices on interest rates? Was it discussed with you that if you're not going to live in this house, it's considered second residency, it comes in a little bit higher interest rate? Is that ever discussed with you? Well, you could go, it might, I don't remember. He could go down that road. And just because he doesn't remember doesn't mean he gets away with it, because there'll be someone else there saying, hey, when we asked if everything was correct on here and that this was going to be your residence and we read that out at closing or on paper, nothing has changed. I don't know how he closed. If he used an abstract, they go through and they go, this is your residency, right? And they make you sign papers again. I mean, you've gone through real estate closings. You signed 10,000 papers. So, Schiff is in trouble with that. Schiff is also under the light of being looked as a leaker, even though Department of Justice might have just said we're not looking to prosecute that and stuff. It might not be up to them too. It might be up to someone else. We don't know yet. And for them to say that because Kash Patel, just last week, released this accused where he had a staffer, and Schiff said it was a disgruntled staffer. All right. I mean, they can speak to him. They can get this information. And the allegations from a former staffer had already been investigated in Trump's first term by federal prosecutors, who questioned the staff's credibility but did not move forward on it. Well, we're looking at it again. We didn't close the case. We're just looking at it again. And so just because at that point in time there is no, they decided not to go forward with it. Now they might have more evidence. Stuff had come to light. They never charged him, so it didn't matter. And the way, they go, well, that happened, now 9 years ago. It's past the statutes of limitations. No. This just came to light now that we have the information. So now we get to question him again on it. And again, he could go, no, let his lawyers fight it. Let his lawyers take up the fight. But he's in trouble. He's in trouble. And they'll get to Schiff, as I said before, they will get to Schiff through people that are around him that do not have an immunity pardon. They'll get the people and they go, hey, listen, honestly, we're not after you. But if you're trying to protect him, and the lawyer will go, we don't have to protect him. You can't do anything with him. And they go, no, we're trying to find the truth. And if your client is trying to lead us down the wrong path here, and we find that out, then we are coming after you. And that's what they do. That is what they do. They lead you down a road. And you better have a lawyer with you. You better have a good lawyer with you who just stops it right then and there and goes, hey guys, if you got something, go forward with it. You take it to court, he could be then compelled to talk. He could be held in contempt of court. He could also be given immunity. Hey, listen, for the next 5 minutes, talk it over with your attorney. We're going to give you immunity on this whole matter. We just want the facts. And again, we're not after you. But you might have to go on a witness stand. You might have to go in front of a grand jury. You might have to do all this. But if you're telling us the truth and telling us what we are, answer the questions we're going to ask you, not give you the answers to what we want to hear, but just give us the truth. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're going to, after every court date, after everything, you're going home. You can go out to dinner. Might not be able to leave the country, but you can go out to dinner till this matter blows over. But you ain't going to go to jail. Not federally. So it could be interesting to see how this plays out. Can't do that so much with James as much as you could do it with Schiff. But I would say, in the end, probably Latoya or Latia, whatever her name is, James, she's in real trouble. I mean, it's just going to come down to ethics. We're going to ask you these questions. Did you say on these applications that you were married to your father? No. Well, how did this happen? I don't know how it happened. What do you mean you don't know how? Is that your handwriting? Did you fill out these forms? I don't remember. Well, we're going to have someone look at these forms and tell us whether or not who wrote these. And, you'll have someone, like Senator Kennedy get up there and go, so you're telling me you don't know that you said you were married to your father? That's something I would remember. So She's in trouble. She could, yes, I did that. I did that. I don't know at this point in time they could do anything about that. Now, some of her other stuff, yeah, they can. But that, no. But that comes down to becoming ethical. All right. You weren't in politics then. You were just, you were a lawyer and stuff, and you were trying to get trying to get something at a better rate. All right. All right. That's unethical, right? Yes. So you're not an ethical person. I've had my moments. I'm not going to go to my maker without some blood on my hands. And that's the best she could do. That is the best she can do. And just go where they go. They ask. I've answered the question already. It's been answered. The answer is not going to change. Look it up, play it back, read it back to them. And what else can they do? Now they're beating a dead horse. Okay, she admitted it. She's an unethical person in that instance, and maybe there's other things. But that can open the door. Once they start probing you, that's the last thing. The word probe. Never, ooh, I'm being probed. Because they're sticking someplace. They're sticking something in someplace that they shouldn't be sticking it. So, and President Trump on Wednesday speaking at the Kennedy Center, and this was, of course, last Wednesday. The hoax was created by the Democrats, but in particular, Schiff, Crooked Hillary, the whole group. So, and Schiff and James have broke the law in their respective real estate activities. Schiff is accused of releasing classified information to the press. The evidence is clear that both of these people acted unethically, whatever the case may turn into. And that's just me saying that. The evidence is clear that both of these people acted unethically, whatever the case may turn into. At the end of the day, they're going to be asked if they're ethical people. And so, the FBI Director Kash Patel added in another statement, the FBI will now lead the charge with our partners in DOJ, and Congress will have the chance to uncover how political power may have been weaponized and to restore accountability. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard said the DOJ opening a grand jury investigation into the Trump-Russian collusion narrative is a setup towards accountability. So, they are looking and going after Schiff. And Schiff had to have known this. Schiff had to have, Biden pardoned everyone that he could possibly pardon. And even that's now questionable on, did he know he was pardoning these people and stuff? And, there's just so much that some of these accusations go out there and then they're not covered again by the media. It doesn't mean they go away or they're forgotten about. Believe me when I tell you, they're not forgotten about. I think Trump's going to have a field day. I said it before. You guys had until about September, late August, the latest mid-September, to clean up your act, to take responsibility, to come out with a plan. Epstein is not a plan. running from your jobs and hiding is not a plan. And if you're going to fight, have something you're going to fight about. Have a plan. I mean, you guys are running into the bullets. You're doing banzai charges. And it accomplishes nothing. Where are your leaders? You had Jeffries in the House say the other day, you wait to see what we're going to do to these people when we're back in power. Well, pal, you're not going to be back in power for a very, very long time. And before you're back in power, when Trump leaves, he's giving everyone a pardon too, because that's what your ex-boss did. And now pave the road for that, assholes. Democrats, you must come up with a plan. If you have no plan, you're going to sit there and you're going to be, oh, what about? What about? But we're tired of hearing that. America elected a president who said what he was going to do. And he's doing it or trying to do it. Now, we all knew that he was going to get some of this stuff done. Other things he's going to be pushed back on. He's going to be pushed back on by Republicans. But the voters said, you know what, I could take 80% of what he's saying. The other 20% we know is never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. We know that. We could just sit back and, he could flail his arms and he could say what he wants to say, but we know that that's not going to happen. Some of the other stuff that he's saying, yeah, that's going to happen, folks. And what are you going to do then? You have a Supreme Court coming back in September. See you in September. Bob, you remember that song. Wait. Because that's when this one's coming up. And that's going to be a big one. And you could just see how big, even in the voting rights and everything else, 14th Amendment, probably one of the most important amendments other than the First and Second Amendment. So, it's going to be interesting, folks. Strap up, because we haven't even started the ride yet. Wait until Trump celebrates his year, his win. And then it starts 2026. You guys must get on the Trump bandwagon if you even want to think at this point of surviving. I mean, Schumer's a joke. Newsom's a joke. Beto O'Rourke, a joke. Harris, no one's given her anything. Walz, moron. Elmer Fudd. Shapiro, he's keeping low, he's keeping quiet. You haven't seen the Democrats beating up John Fetterman either lately. They got off that real quick. And I still say by December, Fetterman will be a Republican. He'll have enough of that party and he'll just go, I can't. Or be an independent and take his chances and go around. There's enough people in Pennsylvania that like him enough to go, We understand why you can't be a Democrat. We understand why you can't be a Republican, even though you probably would have liked to been, but you can't. And he might be very successful at it. And you might have some Democrats that go, I'm going to be an independent. I can't go to the red. I certainly don't want to be with the blue. So I got to be my own person. And now you got to come to me and try to win me over on either side. That might be the best way to be productive in this environment. So that's it. 51 minutes, trying to keep this under an hour. You know my stance on donating. Give to a charity if you can. Charity does begin at home, and I understand that. If you're not comfortable with that, give to a food bank. But a food bank needs more than food. They need toilet paper, they need women products, they need baby products, they need shoes, they need clothing. There's a lot that these organizations do above and beyond just food. So if you don't feel comfortable in giving some money to a charity, just make sure it's a legit charity. Don't be a victim helping victims. But you want to give to a church or a synagogue or a mosque or something along those ways. Have at it. Give. Give something back. It'll make you feel good. And you helped. You could honestly say, I helped someone. I don't know who I helped, but I helped someone. All right. With that, I'm going to fade to black on my live YouTube, which doesn't really go out live because I didn't realize you needed 50 subscribers. Come join. If you're watching this, become a subscriber. And tell me, you know, Bob has no problem telling me horrible things. Horrible. Horrible, horrible things. You know, but he listens. He listens. And if you're listening, join the channel. You don't have to agree with everything I say. You really should, but you don't have to. And, you know, that isn't what America is about. Always, you could have a difference of opinion. And yeah, at the end, you better go with my opinion. But, of course, that's a joke. And that's what it's about. Having discussions. And like I, called people assholes. They're assholes. That's not getting personal. That's just using words. I try not to curse. Because curse is people with limited vocabularies, or they can't deny the facts, or they can't challenge the facts. And so they resort to cursing and screaming and yelling. If they yell louder, that means they're more right. You know, that they're correct. That's not the case. That's not the case. Are you listening, Bob? Are you listening? All right. With that, I'm going to say good night. I'm going to fade to black here. On my live feed, I am going to go to bars right after going to black. All right. Have a good one, all.